I have tried to record this video 3 times, but it's a topic I care about. Before we get things going, really shouldn't have to say this, but this is not a troll video. I don't want the Xbox One to fail. In fact, quite the opposite. I want to see it get better. As an Xbox One owner, I have been a fan of the Xbox system since the original, and I felt like, in many ways, the original Xbox was kind of the Dreamcast too, especially since they got most of those Sega titles over there. And I remember the day that I got my original Xbox. I had worked in a video game store in high school, and some stoner guy came in one day on 420 of all days, and he really needed some money for probably weed or whatever, and he said, "Hey man, how much can you get for this Xbox here? The tray doesn't open up that well unless you use a paperclip." And I said, "Well, according to our store policy, I can give you a refurb charge on it. You'll get 40 bucks in store credit or 20 bucks cash." And he really wanted cash. And he's like, "Is there any way I can just get more cash for this Xbox original?" And I said, "Well, if you want to go outside the store, I can buy that Xbox off of you for 40 bucks cash." And that's what we did. And I was poor growing up, so out of the big 4 consoles, the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Dreamcast, and the Xbox original, I went with the Dreamcast first. And since all the Dreamcast games were super cheap at that point because they were clearancing them out, I got to play titles like Shenmue, Ill Bleed, Jet Set Radio, Phantasy Star. It's honestly one of the best consoles of all time. And so the Xbox original kind of brought back those memories of the Dreamcast because they had Shenmue 2, the Jet Set Radio Future, Panzer Dragoon Orta, and they basically took over many of Sega's older titles. And they played better, and they looked better. And I became a fan of the original Xbox. One thing that defined the original Xbox was this little label right here. Only on Xbox. And that was true for a period in time, that you could only get games like this on the Xbox and nowhere else. Just like you could only get the original Shenmue on the original Dreamcast. It brought me to love the system and consider it as something other than just a Halo machine. I have a few games here. So Panzer Dragoon Orta, of course, really good. It has the original 2 Panzer Dragoons on there. Games like Phantom Dust, games like Otogi 1 and 2, Ginma Onimusha, Metal Wolf Chaos. All those games were Japanese-centric, a Japanese flavor, if you will. They're not all RPGs. Some of them were action RPGs. Ninja Gaiden, the reboot, and Ninja Gaiden Black started off on the Xbox. You could only get them on the Xbox. And for an American-made machine, that was impressive to me. It said that they were embracing other cultures and other styles of games at that time, and it wasn't going to be just a sports or shooter game machine, even though most of the highest selling games were sports or shooter related. Now, the PS2 did have an amazing library of Japanese games, and the GameCube had its fair share too, but the Xbox original still had a game for just about everyone. In many ways, Microsoft took the place of Sega in the console market. Their games were gorier, they were more adult. They had a big black machine that took over the living room, and I have to give them credit for opening up online gaming to the rest of the world, to the casual world at least, through Xbox Live. That was an impressive achievement. So I had no doubt in my mind that the Xbox 360 was going to be a phenomenal console, and that I would have no problems buying it near launch, and that's what I did. Out of the PlayStation 3, 360, and Wii, I went with the 360. The PS3 was way too expensive, and Blu-ray wasn't, for me, I didn't have a high-definition TV till later, and the Wii was too hard to find, and it was too close to the GameCube and graphics and other things at that point for me to be super interested. In a way, the Xbox 360 was my entry into the HD generation. Now, the Xbox 360 gets a reputation for being a brown and blue machine, but to me, it was far from it because it had a ton of different types of colorful games on it. Games like Eternal Sonata, which is one of the most colorful games I've ever played. It has a phenomenal soundtrack that echoes Sebastian Bach. And it's a pretty good RPG too. It eventually did get a port to the PS3 later on. Same thing with Tales of Vesperia in Japan. Games like Bullet Witch. Now, I've reviewed this on my channel. It does have that only on Xbox 360 stamp there. And it is a rough game. It isn't the best in the world, but it's made by the developers of Nier, and I think with a little bit more polish and maybe a sequel, we could have seen something great. I consider this next game the last true Final Fantasy, Lost Odyssey, probably one of the best RPGs I've ever played. This game is 4 discs long. It has a phenomenal soundtrack, the story is totally engaging, the battle system's great too, and you can only get this on the Xbox 360 and nowhere else. I was introduced to the Simple series through Earth Defense Force 2017 on the Xbox 360, which eventually blew up this franchise into something way bigger than it should have been, honestly. And I learned about the Simple series. I got into more obscure niche Japanese games on the PS2 because of the Xbox 360. Bring in Earth Defense Force over here. And speaking of the Simple series, Oni-Chambara also got a start on the Xbox 360. And yeah, I know it's a little out there, you know, you're slaying zombies as a cowgirl in a bikini, but I love this style of game. I mean, you can't... These types of Japanese games are really what I'm into, just odd, weird, and funny games. Lost Planet, not many people talk about this. Once again, it has that little stamp there, only on Xbox 360. And Lost Planet 2 and 3 did come out to other systems, but this is a pretty solid title. It's kind of like Earth Defense Force meets Mech Warrior. I was really happy to play this, and it was a great Japanese exclusive title. Operation Darkness, so if you want to talk Valkyria Chronicles being a PS3 exclusive for the longest time, well, this game right here was kind of its mirror. I mean, you played as werewolves against Nazi zombies, what's not to love? And if you like shoot 'em ups, Project Sylphid is a really good one, as well as Death Smiles and Akai Katana. The Xbox 360 had a ton of great shoot 'em ups on it, and now the PS4 has kind of shown it up with Resogun and all these other ones that are coming out for the PS4 and not the Xbox One. The game that sold me on the 360 the most, the original Dead Rising. Once again, you can get it on the Xbox 360 and nowhere else, not even PC this day. And I think this is my favorite out of the entire series, for including 1 through 3 and all the spin-offs. I think this one has the most heart and soul, and it was produced by Keiji Inafune, and it has challenge in it, it has weird oddities, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think out of all 3 of them, this is my favorite. Alone in the Dark, wait, what is this doing in the pile? Well, there is an ironic charm to this one. This is probably the most broken version of Alone in the Dark, but I did love this on the Xbox 360, and yeah, they did eventually polish it later, but how did this get in there? And how could I forget to mention the best Japanese style game to come out for the Xbox 360 that wasn't exclusive for the first 2 years? That's right, Deadly Premonition came out for $20. It ended up being one of the best games on the system, one of my favorite games of all time. Now yes, it did get a PS3 remaster and a PC remaster, but both of those versions are very buggy. This one's still a solid game through and through, and I still play this version the most out of all of them. The purpose of me showing you all those games was to demonstrate that yes, I am a fan of the Xbox 360. There's a certain type of game that I loved that Microsoft was supporting back in the day. And now that has dramatically shifted when it comes to the Xbox One. So let me tell you why I bought an Xbox One in the first place. It's a funny story how I bought my Xbox One. I had been one of the lucky guys to get Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth Collector's Edition on Amazon, and during the 2 minutes it was available, and I flipped that for $350. Yeah. So instead of investing that into a retirement plan or a savings account, I went out and bought an Xbox One on the launch day of D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die. So if you remember, I'm a big fan of Deadly Premonition. I was told by Microsoft that this was going to be an exclusive title for the Xbox One and nowhere else. So that's what I did, and I love the game. It's kind of like a point-and-click adventure game. Think about The Walking Dead or The Wolf Among Us, only more expanded and more beautiful. And D4 was episodic. It only had one season, and I believe the sales of Season 1 was going to kickstart the rest of the season, so Season 2. And that didn't happen. It didn't sell that well on the Xbox One. Maybe it's because that type of gamer migrated to the PS4 or to the Vita or even the Wii U, or just gave up and said, hey, I'm sticking with my last gen consoles at this moment. Whatever the case may be, I remember the launch date of D4, and Microsoft didn't do that much to promote the game. There were no commercials on TV. Heck, the game didn't even get a physical copy. Now, don't discount the power of TV and don't discount the power of physical copies in selling your games, because they are both valid types of advertisement in this day and age. The average consumer is ignorant to many of the games that are out there in the world. I mean, there's so many to pick from nowadays that one of the best ways to get people to buy your game is simply by having it on a store shelf where they can pick it up and look at it, read the description, and make a decision at that point. Well, D4 didn't get that chance, and neither did Crimson Dragon, which is another game that I was interested on that platform. If you wanted to play those games, you had to have a stable internet connection and hopefully not a data cap like many people out there have on their internet plans. So there are additional hidden costs involved with buying a digital title, and one of the things that turned away most people from the Xbox One at launch was that mantra that those games were going to be digital only and you couldn't share them and you had no power over your purchase. Yes, we've moved away from it. Yes, Microsoft has done better, but what I'm saying is that there is a reason why people still buy physical copies. And especially like if you're like me, I like to collect shit. So yes, here we are. We're in 2016 and there's been some other Japanese style games announced and some of them that have fallen off the radar. I'm talking about Scalebound and Phantom Dust 2. Scalebound has been pushed to 2017, and everything that I've heard from Hideki Kamiya, consider the source, has been quite negative as far as Microsoft's advertisement of the game. So I think he's shifted his priorities elsewhere. There has been no news on Phantom Dust 2. It's either the company's gone bankrupt or Microsoft has just given up at this point. The next big Japanese game to come out on the Xbox One is Stranger of the Sword City, and that's coming out for the PS Vita as well, and maybe it might come out for Steam. So let's talk about exclusives here for a second. Microsoft was known for the only on Xbox branding of their titles, and they meant it, and it was what drove me to stick with my consoles and not trade my 360 for PS3, and so on and so forth. Now, there are two schools of thought when it comes to exclusives. There are people who think that exclusives are harmful to the games industry because it prevents the consumer from having choices over their purchase and preventing some people from discovering or supporting the games they like, which I understand. And then there are people that might be more fanboys, or maybe they want more support to come to their console, so they want to keep exclusives on that platform, which I can also understand. If you go out and you invest in a system, you want to see that system prosper, and a way to do that is to lock down some exclusives. I see both points of view, and I think they're both quite valid. But if I were a console manufacturer, the way to add value to my system is to make games that are only available on that system. Kind of a closed network, Steve Jobs approach. With that said, Microsoft has been letting go of their exclusive titles. I was really surprised to see a big title like Rise of the Tomb Raider now appear on the PS4 and PC at a discounted rate and in a higher resolution and a higher frame rate. And that seems to be the case with many Xbox One titles. You can get them on Xbox One for a few months, a lower resolution, lower frame rate version, or you can wait a few months and get a Game of the Year or an up-res version somewhere else. And I think that is harmful to the integrity of the Xbox One brand. The Xbox One kind of bungled their launch, especially with the name Xbox One. It's your one place for everything you need when it comes to entertainment. So their priorities weren't games first. It was Netflix and ESPN Live and Connect and Picture-in-Picture and all these things that I really don't use as a gamer. And I think that as we've gone along, they've tried to re-earn the goodwill of their gamers and bring more people over to the console by getting rid of the mandatory Connect and lowering the price of the system and bundling in games and kind of resting on their laurels of the Rare Replay and more Halo and more Gears of War. And I think that instead of constantly doing the same thing that was successful back in the Xbox original day, the 360 day, they should continue to innovate and continue to bring new types of games. And they are. They're bringing some interesting games, like there was that Rare Pirates game that I thought looked pretty cool. You know, a couple others that I'm forgetting. I'm really blanking on this one. There's not many. Xbox has always had that reputation of being the Doritos and Mountain Dew Call of Duty type of gamer attracting platform. And I don't think it's ever going to let that image die, but at the same time, it had a game for everyone, the true sense of being the Xbox One, a console of the world. So I'm a little disappointed in myself here, but I did reach out to Reddit about this very topic, and I asked just the simple question, where are all the Japanese games? And I was met with some open hostility about that very topic. It was an honest question. So I was told, those types of games don't sell that well, so that's why they don't appear on the platform, and that's okay with me. And yes, I can see that point of view. If something doesn't sell that well, then you shouldn't invest in that type of genre as much. But you shouldn't eliminate it entirely. I still don't see that as an excuse for not differentiating the types of games on your platform, especially when you did it before. In the industry, we have things called loss leaders, as in you put out something that's probably far more different or obscure or niche on your platform to build integrity for your console. You open with Nickelback, you close with Sebastian Bach, just so you have a well-rounded platform. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, you can have games for the masses, you can have Halos, you can have Gears of War, you can have your Madden games on it. There's nothing wrong with that. You want more people to support your console. If you want your console to be a one-stop shop, then you gotta have a little bit of everything. Hell, the Xbox 360 had one of the most impressive indie development scenes that I have ever witnessed. They had X&A. Now, if you don't know what X&A is, X&A was kind of like a development kit for smaller guys that could make any sort of game that they wanted to for the Xbox 360 and sell it through the Xbox 360 marketplace. Now, the quality of those games, obviously, well, some of them aren't the best, but I did discover games like I made a game with zombies in it, which is hilarious, and I played 1,000 Spikes way before it got a release elsewhere. Now Microsoft's closed that off. They've closed off indie developers, they've closed off Japanese developers, and now they're just sticking to just a few solid games. They went from a very open and diverse community of gamers to just the ones that are buying millions. They're playing it too safe, I think. What do I want here? Well, I want to see Microsoft take more chances. I want to see them be more open about the status of some of these games coming out, like what's going on with Scalebound? What the hell happened to Phantom Dust 2? Are we ever going to see D4 Season 2, or are they just going to keep tight-lipped about this sort of thing? I mean, Nintendo does its best to put out a Direct every other month, even after Iwata passed away. Sony's been putting out crazy conferences just about their lineup of PS4 games. What's to get excited about on the Xbox One? Why would I want to stop and buy games for the Xbox One whenever I know I can buy better versions on other platforms? I know you can say Xbox Live, yeah, that's the one thing you got going for you, as far as I'm concerned. You want to see the only physical game I own for your console? Dead Rising 3. Guess where it plays better? On the PC. The past 100 times I've been into a game store, I look at the Xbox section, I say, PC, PS4, PC, PS4. And the coolest thing that I've seen that's exclusive on the Xbox One has been Rare Replay, which is a compilation of games that appeared on other consoles back in the day. So I close out this video with a question. Is there a reason for me to keep a hold of my Xbox One anymore? Should I trade it for more Vita games at this point? Is there a reason for any Japanese game lover, people that like games like Katamari Damacy or Deadly Premonition, to hold out any hope or consider the Xbox One as their console of choice? To me, it doesn't seem that way. But what do you guys think? I want to thank you for watching this really long video. Don't take it as me hating on the Xbox One. As I said, I want the best. I've loved the Microsoft brand for a very long time, and I consider them to be a very competent game developer when they're at their best. But I just think they've slowed things down and they're heading in the wrong direction at this point. But that's just me. Alright, I'll see you guys next time.